Hello, everybody, and welcome to...
Welcome.
Yes. Double welcome.
Yes.
To a very special episode of Dark Alignment. This is like sort of a bonus episode, sort of an emergency episode. It's like really, this was an intuitive pull to do this.
It was. This is an interesting story, just that we're doing this at all today.
Right. So this was not planned whatsoever. We actually have two other stories that are already researched and lined up that we had planned. Mm-hmm. This was completely like out of the blue. But last time we were here, we covered Richard Ramirez. So that was season 2, episode 6. This is, I guess we're going to do this as episode 7. But today we are going to talk about the disappearance of Morgan Nick. And I'm going to tell you why a little bit. If I've ever been close to being anything like a serious, any sort of crime, anything, it's going to be this episode and this story. This and like Columbine, I think, are like my closest, just because it's so sensitive and it hits so close to home. Especially this story. When Morgan disappeared, she was only 6 years old. I was 8 at the time, and I lived just a few hours away. And I'll never forget how this case impacted me. It is still unsolved. It's been 25 years, 8 months, and I believe 6 days. Yeah, since she was abducted and has been missing. So we're gonna just let's quickly talk about like how we got pulled to do this today. So last night, I just had this very strong feeling to look for an update on this case. Like I said, it's impacted me for most of my life. And I've thought about Morgan so many times over the years, but for some reason last night I just could not shake it. And I just
super compelled.
Yeah. It felt different. I needed to see her picture for some reason, and I know what the picture looks like. It's burned into my skull forever. And I looked it up, started reading about it again. I shared her picture and was just like, we gotta solve this someday. Like I hope she just
put it on her story.
Right. I put it on my story and I was just like, we gotta find her. And then
I reacted to her story and she was like, we were talking about it, and she told me all of that and how she connected to it and stuff, and I was like, yeah. I mean, I definitely heard about it when it like later, like I think my mom might have referenced it a couple times as a kid, but like I was 2 when she went missing, and we were moving away back out of Arkansas at the time, so like I probably wouldn't remember during it, but she was like, oh, well, I'd love to talk about it on the podcast sometime, but I don't know how we would make that work. And I was like, actually, in my dream last night, we did like a different type of episode, and I said it was like a mini bonus episode, and in the dream I knew it was about something like different, like a little different, or the way something about it was a little different, but I couldn't remember after I'd been awake for a while this morning like what it was. Like I couldn't remember what I wish I could now. Yeah. But and then I was like, it feels like it's this though. Like I feels like this is what it is. And I was like, I dreamt that we were doing a different type of podcast episode just last night. I don't usually dream about the podcast.
Right. And I don't ever feel like, hey, let's do it today.
Yeah, like, and we were trying to make plans, and we were like, it's probably going to happen today, even though it was like, we had no plans to do. I was like, I need to make sure that everything's good to do this today, like on the 3D level, but I know, like, spiritually, like, intuitively it's happening today. I just have to make sure, like, I have everything lined up.
Right, getting the 3D stuff in order, because we knew that this, like, for whatever reason, I feel this huge sense of urgency to talk about it. And then it's funny, because as I was starting to research it, I spent my lunch break, researching it. I could have done this episode without looking anything up. That's actually what I planned to do. I planned to just talk intuitively about it. But I felt like, okay, I'll just, do as much research as I can get done before we record.
And guess what information she happened to find?
Fucking insane. I came across things like, I watched a ton of interviews with her mother, Colleen Nick. She's incredible. I'm going to talk a lot about her today and the Morgan Nick Foundation, which is doing amazing work locally and internationally. To help bring home missing individuals, not just children, but adults too. They do education programs. They serve as like a liaison between families and the police. And they offer support and resources and even almost like a guide on like, here's what you can expect to know on your case, and here's the questions that you should be asking, or what they should be.
We'll have a link to donate.
Yes.
In the description.
Yes, and definitely follow them on social media. They're everywhere. The Morgan Nick Foundation. Just really want to bring a lot of visibility to this case.
Absolutely.
And as I was researching it, I ran across interviews from 4 weeks ago, and I was like, holy shit.
Like, this is such an old case. Like, we weren't expecting there to be anything new. We were thinking maybe there is. It's not the anniversary of anything happening.
Because I was wondering that, and I said that.
That's what I looked at, too, before you asked it, before you said it, too. And I was like, I don't know, but something feels like there's a reason why.
Right.
And
so if you have never heard of this case, and you have never heard of Morgan Nick, you're about to. I mean, not only just here, but like on a large scale, you're about to hear so much about her, because her mother has been working with some documentary producers on a really amazing project. It's called Still Missing Morgan. And this documentary is completed. It's filmed. They're right now looking for which platform they're going to launch it on. So on the interview from 4 weeks ago, Colleen said that we should expect something within a few weeks to a few months. Wow. So I'm talking like
anytime now.
In the next month, like, this might be on Netflix. So keep that in mind. Still Missing Morgan. And there's so much about this case. Like, we're going to definitely have to do updates and follow it really closely, because I feel like it's about to be solved. I feel like there's going to be a huge break in the case. And we're just going to kind of talk about what happened.
Right. So, like, she went on her lunch break and researched a little bit extra and found out that the timing, there is like a divine timing reason for this hitting us right now. And she found times for her birth and for the time she disappeared.
Right.
Which I was assuming we would just never be able to find, but she just...
The way I found it was watching interviews and hearing every single interview I watched. I have chills. Every interview I watched, Colleen was in.
Wow.
And she was talking, she's so strong. So amazing. Such an amazing woman.
And I put the space heater on in here today, so, like, if we get chills, it's not because...
I have chills just from... I've had chills all day. I felt really emotional about it today just because the draw...
I could tell.
Was so strong.
And the podcast timing with me, like, that is a lot for me. Like,
yeah. This is all,
this is so amazing. I'm so excited to do this episode.
Yes, but I actually got her birth time straight from her mother in an interview. It's wild.
It's such a cool birth time, too. She's born at 4:44 a.m.
Yep. And as soon as I heard that, I felt like I was going to faint. Like, it was just felt so significant. Like, it just, like, overwhelming.
Yeah.
Very, very significant. So we can talk about fours and... if we want to, about like kind of symbolism. There's so much like numerology stuff. But I'm going to go ahead and get into the story of Morgan Nick. So the night she disappeared, it was actually, this is what made it so scary. So she was at a Little League game with her mom. There were tons of people there. She was playing with her friends. Actually, before she was abducted, she asked her mom if she could go play with her friends. They were catching fireflies. Like, it's June, it's hot, we live in, it's the South, like, there's fireflies, catching fireflies is a big thing.
You wouldn't think twice about that, likely. Right. Like, you'd just be like, oh, yeah, I'll keep you in my line of sight, and then just, like, continue talking to your parents.
You're going to be right over there with other children. There's tons of parents around. Like, we're in our safe little space in a really small town. This town has 5,000 people in it. Alma is a tiny little town. So I actually got one of my dogs. Barley came from Alma. So.
One of my favorite college professors was from Alma. She would drive up to campus every day. It was like an hour drive or
at least. It's not super far. Yeah. So again, this is
sociology
crazy.
Professor from Alma.
Shout out. Shout out there. But it's a little baseball field. The one thing that really strikes me is the time. Because it's late at night. I'm thinking, why is a Little League game going on this late? Because this was around 10:30 p.m. was about the last time.
I did. I was a scorekeeper for kids baseball for a while.
What? What? I'm sorry. What?
I wasn't that good at it. I didn't care a lot about it. I was in high school. I was a senior or a junior.
Okay.
And
crazy.
I would go. I would just, like, sit in a little, like, booth thing. It was really gross. There were roaches and always, like, sunflower seed shells from, like, other people who would keep score. They would just, like, throw all the seeds. It was nasty. But it was really laid back and chill, and they paid per game, and so whatever. But like they would do like 2 or 3 games in the evening, and I would work that stretch of time, and the late game would sometimes take like late. Yeah.
Well, I guess baseball...
and then if they're going to hang out after the game, it's late.
Okay. Mm-hmm. I guess it is one of those sports that's, like, a little bit longer.
And if one game runs over, and then, like, the second one... I don't know. Like, if your second game doesn't start till 8 or 8:30... And then, like, I don't know. Like, I could kind of see it. It is a little late.
I was just thinking, like, this was pretty late at night. That was the only thing that seemed kind of odd to me. But again, I've never been a scorekeeper for any sports team.
I don't recommend it.
It doesn't sound like
especially
a thing I'd be good
at. Kids games, because the parents just get mad and yell at you.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure.
Whether you're right or wrong.
It doesn't matter. Well, thank you for that insight. That's actually really interesting, because that was one thing that stood out to me, because I was like, 10:30, that's kind of late. But they were, it was her and several kids. Mm-hmm. They were chasing fireflies. The last things that people say they saw Morgan doing is, like, all the kids, I guess, had gotten sand in their shoes. Like, they had been playing in, like, a sandy area. I remember those, like, having, like this field over here, and then, like, a beach volleyball area over here, and just kind of, like, I don't know if it was that kind of setup, but it sounds like something similar. And that they were all, like, taking their shoes off and, like, getting sand out of their shoes. So they're all kind of doing stuff, kind of distracted. And then the kids say they saw a creepy guy. Like, they described him as a creepy guy. There's a composite sketch that we can look at. That he was a young white male, in his, like, mid to late 20s, maybe early 30s. Had come and was talking to Morgan. So, and then had abducted her, put her into his red pickup truck with a white camper. I will never forget the way the vehicle looked either. And abducted her, just straight up took her, and the kids were like,
That's awful.
So there were tons of witnesses. There were tons of people who saw it, and nobody got, from what I understand, like a license plate. They looked at every... Like, the way this was investigated, like, law enforcement did a really great job, and Colleen attests to this in every interview of just how proud she is of their local law enforcement, of the Arkansas State Police, of the FBI, and everybody who has helped on this case, and nobody has given up. It's just been quiet. Mm-hmm. She says they still get new leads every single week. Every single week. I didn't realize
that. I was afraid this was going to be, like, sad. Like, this morning we were talking about it first. I was like, I bet no one's really... Wow. This
case is extremely exciting, and it's because of the Morgan Nick Foundation and all the work that Colleen is doing.
Wow.
And not just for her own family, like, not just for her own child,
but for others.
She is doing it for others, and she is just such a strong, amazing, badass woman. It's fantastic. Like, you should really, if you've never, like, heard her speak or seen an interview with her, it's worth watching just to feel her spirit and her determination and her tenacity. And also, she's got this gentleness about her too, where it's not just this, like, fighting, like, she gets emotional still when she talks about Morgan sometimes, and, like, tells really heartwarming stories about her, and, like, this case meant a lot to a lot of people, especially when it's a small town. Like, I feel like the entire state of Arkansas felt it. I feel like people, and the other thing that she said that's so exciting is, like, people my age. She said people who were 6 when Morgan disappeared, they're the ones who are going to solve this case. And she's like, they're the ones who are keeping it alive. They're the ones who never forgot her. Ooh, and keep talking about her.
I just saw something.
Oh, God. this room is so, like, much energy. I don't know if you guys saw the orbs all over me
on the last episode.
In the last episode, so for those of you who are...
And after we finished filming, she was like, I felt him, like, around me, but, like, I made sure to keep him, like, at a distance, and I was like...
I just felt like he was going to mess with us, and then we had problems with sound. Like, I just felt like he's kind of like...
Well, you're right.
He was going to fuck with us. I felt like he was. But it's interesting. Like, this room has so much strong energy in it. So if you see any orbs in this episode, please let us know, because, like, I feel so many, like, strong energy things just in this room, and I felt it all day with this case, because it just felt like I've never felt a pull quite like this, except for Columbine. That was the other story that I felt.
A lot of intuitive picks for episodes. This one's like very
This one's strong. Definitely different. It's such a crazy thing to think about, of just like being abducted in plain sight like that, and that was such a scary thing for kids in a small town, you know?
Right.
You want to think you're safer.
And, I mean, it was something like the 90s, there were so many child abductions and things like that. It's just kind of like, I don't know if they just got more light or what but it seemed like 80s and 90s, people started really paying a lot more attention to like kids safety and child abductions and like making sure, because my mom, this was probably one of the reasons she was very like safety oriented with us like growing up. You know, like we learned all the stranger danger stuff like hardcore.
When the thing
and I know that she didn't when she was growing up, and you know,
I think one of the big things is like not only have people gotten better with just awareness, but surveillance is better. Most places have cameras and surveillance, so you do see like fewer instances just because there's more awareness. And the interesting thing, so I want to talk really quickly about child abduction. Children are much more likely to be abducted by somebody they know than a stranger. Much more likely. So significantly, exponentially more likely. And the most common occurrence of child abduction is the non-custodial parent.
Oh, I hear,
that is
what a lot of Amber Alerts that come
majority,
up
yes. It doesn't mean they're less dangerous.
Yeah.
It just means that more often than not, a child who is abducted typically knows their abductor. So there's a small percentage, like Morgan's case, where it is a stranger. So that just goes to say stranger danger is actually not as dangerous as acquaintance danger is like family friend danger. That's the person who tries to someone you
kind of trust or think maybe I should give them the benefit of the doubt.
Well, it's more of like they do it very purposefully, where they tend to befriend the parents. They start coming over for dinner. They start getting to where they're trusted, isolated, and alone with children. Like that's how a lot of just child sexual predators and child predators in general.
I mean, like as the child, like you think like you know your thought first isn't they're super creepy. I don't want to be around them. Your thought is like, well, they're friends with mom and dad. Like I should probably trust them.
Trust them by association. You learn to respect your elders. That's the other thing. You learn stranger danger.
Like,
respect your elders.
So anything bad is going to happen for this person.
We're scared of the creepy stranger. Like in this case, this is the creepy guy that we're afraid of.
But that's not always.
But it's not the most common. So what happened to Morgan is, it's kind of mind blowing. You know, especially with all the witnesses in plain sight at a like little league game in this very small town. It's just it was so wild. And so this case didn't have, like, they had a lot of leads that they were investigating, but nothing is panning out. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the actual investigation of the case. So don't mind me flipping through my notes a little bit here. So if you hear a sound of paper, I don't always have handwritten notes.
People like that. It's very tactile ASMR.
Okay. What does that stand for?
We'll talk about it later.
Okay, because I actually don't know the answer. Anyway. So after all of this happened, Colleen Nick creates the Morgan Nick Foundation, again, to help find missing children and missing people. She is working really hard. She's working directly with law enforcement, cooperating with them, of course, and then just, you know, keeping Morgan's case alive. And they had a break in the case in 2002. So they got a lead. This was, let's see, because this happened 1995, 2002, like 7 years. Okay, so they get a break in the case, and they get such a specific hit that they begin digging on a property in Boonville, Arkansas.
House phone?
House phones exist still. Oh, whoa.
This one's loud, too.
That's kind of creepy.
I know, I don't like it. I don't like it too much. But we have to keep it on for a while.
Right.
Yeah, we get some important calls too.
That is wild. I just totally forget that house phones are even a thing.
I was doing a reading here on my lunch break. The first time it went off when I was in here alone, and it was like...
Yeah, that kind of scared me a lot.
Because I was in like the zone, like in like meditative, like astral type of zone doing this reading, and then you just get shocked out of it.
Yeah, it kind of scared me. It kind of felt like an alarm. But
anyways.
So they get a break in the case. They start digging in Boonville, Arkansas. So that's actually not super far from like Devil's Den hiking. So anybody who's like familiar with hiking spaces around the area, it's like
Devil's Den is a big spot.
Devil's Den is a big spot
in Northwest Arkansas.
And it's really, really pretty out there. But yeah, so they got a hit. They did digging. They brought cadaver dogs. They did the whole thing. Nothing ever came of it. There was nothing concrete, nothing substantial. So again, they're still getting leads this entire time. The police are still doing work, gathering evidence. And then in 2010, there was another really big hit in the case. So again, you're looking at 8 years.
Wow.
So you're looking at these big chunks of time in between. And then here we are again 11 years later after this, where we're like seeing even more. I can't wait for the documentary to come out because they can't talk about...
invested.
And also, another thing about this documentary is most documentaries do not come out while there is an open case investigation. It's normally like a cold case. This case may be old. It is not cold. It is active. It is being actively worked. Never at any point in time have there not been officers assigned to this case.
Wow.
And that's really amazing considering
that is amazing.
How long they've been working it. So I feel like we're really like about to see justice for Morgan, and it's awesome. But in 2010... there was a DNA hit, which is wild. So there's an abandoned house. I don't even know how or why police got there. Some sort of a tip, I'm assuming. There was an abandoned house in Spiro, Oklahoma. So Alma, just real quickly geographically, it is really close to the Oklahoma border. So that was one of the things that actually made it hard to identify the red pickup truck, since it wasn't even like specific... like make, model. I've seen pictures of what it like looks like they published pictures of it with that white camper on the back. I'll never forget it. We should post pictures of it.
Yeah. We should.
But they searched the entire state for any like red pickup trucks. Obviously in the South there's a lot of them. And also like Oklahoma. So they were trying to like find the vehicle, but they were looking at 2 states, and then this evidence came from Oklahoma. So abandoned house. They found evidence of Morgan's DNA in this house, that she had been in this house. They don't know when.
Wow. But
they can, like, they confirm.
They can place her there.
But there was no other evidence. So, like, all they can say is, like, she was there. So, at what point from being abducted was she taken there? Was she taken there and held there for a period of time? What happened? You know, there's still no evidence showing that she is no longer alive either. There's nothing confirming, you know, you don't have blood evidence showing there's like a ton of blood loss where you can definitively say no one could have survived this. There's no other forensic evidence to make it seem like she isn't still out there. Another thing with children this young, there's a chance they don't remember their families and don't remember, especially after a lot of trauma. And Colleen talks about this in her interviews where she's like, you know, with all missing people, when time goes by, like sometimes when they're young and all the trauma, they don't remember, and it's our job to find them. Like they're not, maybe can't find us. Like they may not remember how. And then there's the whole Stockholm syndrome that can happen where you befriend your abductor, and it's a different type of relationship. So who even knows? There's so many possibilities. There's more questions than answers with this whole case. And when kids do go missing, only about 2% make it home. So that's a harsh reality and a really sad fact. But all we can say really right now about this case is that it needs more awareness. It needs more attention. You guys are definitely about to hear so much about it when this documentary comes out. But in the meantime, the family is asking the Morgan Nick Foundation and this documentary team, like they are asking for people, if you lived in Arkansas in that time frame, if you lived around the area in the summer of 1995, if you were in the Alma area, if you were at some of these games, they were saying like it's the pandemic, like while you're stuck at home, while you're doing stuff, like look through old pictures, like that now is the perfect time to like dig around, like those old pictures that maybe you don't think are worth anything, like submit them. There might be something there might be, you know. And Colleen continues to say somebody knows something. Somebody here, she feels like it's somebody local. She feels like it's somebody hiding in plain sight. She knows that somebody knows the answer, and that something's going to happen. And it's that's why I feel like I didn't even know why I felt so compelled to talk about this case until I started really digging into what's going on with it and where it is right now. So without further ado, because we're going to have a lot more updates on this case, this was just a rough overview of what happened, where they are with it, and we do have a birth time, so we'll have a full chart for Morgan, and then we do have the time of abduction as well, to see if we can, I don't know, pick up on anything. Who even knows?
Yes. Okay, so I'll get that pulled up now.
Yes.
I have the chart pulled up for her birth. She was born 9/12/1988 at 4:44 a.m. in Ozark, Arkansas. She was born the day after a new moon. Her sun is in Virgo, her moon is in Libra, and her rising is Leo. And the first thing on her chart that really stood out to me was this Sun South Node Lilith conjunction. I just think it's so telling right away with how she. I'm trying to think how I want to word it. Lilith is empowerment. Your South Node tends to be things that are missing from life, or things that you kind of reject in yourself, or things that are of your past lives. It's where you're like not. It's your past. It's not where you're really trying to get more of that. It's more things you're trying to have less of, or you're trying to integrate into your future or something like that. Okay. Things that are on your South Node aren't things you necessarily like about yourself or like in life or something. And for your Sun to be there, it can show like a rejection of the self. For Lilith to be there, it can show a lack of self-empowerment, like literally losing your power as yourself. Wow. And so that's just the first thing that I noticed on here. And then when I pulled her disappearance chart over it, it got even crazier, because that part of her chart lit up. She has Pholus right over top of those placements, which I told you is an exaggeration of that part of your life whenever Pholus comes around. Mars is there, meaning action was taken on it, and Chiron was there, which means it was traumatic. And it was trauma right, like, within a degree of her Sun placement. Like, it was directly to herself and her physical self. Her being, her ability to thrive in life was hit. There's a lot of squares on this. It's actually Lilith square Lilith, Sun square Sun, Pholus square Pholus. All of these things, which makes it even more conflict, even more exaggerated. It happened in a social environment. All of those things were in Gemini at the time of her disappearance. The Sun was in Gemini, obviously. It was the Gemini season. She already has Jupiter and Pholus conjunct on her natal chart, so having all of this coming over that part of her chart and squaring the other intense part of her chart with those same, it's very, this is almost just like when people make those posts like, oh, if astrology isn't real, then why is this happening, which is definitely real. Like this is a strong evidence of this situation. This is just so intense. I really encourage you guys to pull these charts. Her disappearance was 6/9/1995 at 10:45. Let's see. Make sure I get the houses.
I guess I could show the pictures. I meant to show her pictures earlier.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
And I did not.
So I just wanted to adjust something on my.
Yeah, while you're doing that, I'll show you guys the pictures. So when I think of this case, and I imagine, like, when I think of Morgan, this is the picture that comes to mind. This was the picture that was on all the flyers. This is what I remember seeing everywhere. Was this picture of her? So adorable little girl. Beautiful blue eyes. I remember that. I always thought it was a red t-shirt. It looks pink in this picture. I think it was red, but it might just be.
It might just be discoloration of the picture.
Right.
It looks like it's faded in that one.
So they've done an age progression, which is why I'm really showing you this. They've age progressed her photo. Amy has not seen it yet, so I'm going to show it to her live. I'll show it to you guys. And then, okay. So this is the age progression of what she may look like now. So just let that image seep in. If you want to
see, you'll have to either look it up or be on our YouTube.
Are you ready?
Whoa. That's so much more detail than I expected.
Right? Isn't that amazing? Like how they can do that? Oh my God. Of course, like height and weight are approximations.
I expected it to be more generic than it is. Wow.
No, it's like extremely detailed and really, they've done a really good job.
Amazing job.
She would be 32 years old now.
So cute too.
I know. So it's wild. So I wanted to share that really quickly.
Yeah, definitely. If you recognize that face,
right? Again, she may not remember. Like, who knows?
And it could be any situation. Like that's. But you can tell on the charts, like clearly she was actively taken. It was traumatic, and it was disempowering. She went missing. Herself went missing. She was taken opposite of this placement on her North Node. Her North Node is in Pisces, along with Ceres in retrograde on her natal chart. And there's something, and I talk about this in my readings, when you have this this North Node, South Node combination, let me find my notes on it. There's the South Node shows where you're coming from a past life where let me make sure I'm doing it the right direction. Sometimes I get mixed up. Yeah, okay. So her South Node was more about, everyday life, every routines, goals, trusting her intuition and enjoying her day-to-day life as a kid, really. Her past would have been more like a routine. She had like sports and activities she was in, and she probably did all these things, really direct, simple, really loving, nurturing kind of energy, maybe kind of focused on your health and making sure everything is good. You're serving yourself and those around you. But as you move over to the Pisces end of her life, her future in life was to be disconnected from the community in some way. With the Pisces energy, it can be in a lot of different forms. Like it could show up as you went through like an addiction and that separated you from society. You were really isolated because of your addiction, or maybe an illness. Maybe you were confined to like a hospital bed for a long period of time towards the end of your life or the second half of your life. Maybe if you were doing something really heavily religious where you would be like isolated because of that, especially like back in the day, that used to be more of the reason. Especially with it having to do with like the Pisces energy of what's beyond this world, themes, dreamy stuff. Yeah, so you're nuns, priests. It could be that someone had to flee for safety. A lot of like 12th house and Pisces North Nodes may happen to be off that. It could just be that they decide that they prefer to be spending their time alone. Or imprisonment.
Imprisonment is the one I feel like that I've heard the most with like some of the 12th house stuff.
Hospitalized, or they could be committed, they have this imaginary world they're caught up in. They could be gifted spiritually, where they just end up being like the one around them, where they're the only ones like they're the ones with the gift that people go see.
Isolates you.
Isolates you. They could be kind of that artist type where they become isolated, because they just want to be in their studio doing their thing and they're not understood. But it can literally show that you are taken. That you are taken and isolated from the rest of the world. And for her to have so many other placements on her chart indicating that and pointing to that, I just think it is so striking when you look at the chart.
Yeah.
And then for her to have Saturn conjunct her North Node during the time of, the stars really aligned, unfortunately, for this to happen the way it did. Saturn came over her North Node, so on that life path situation that I'm talking about, and with all these aspects, Saturn is confinement, it is structure, it is, I almost think she was taken to like a place, she was taken to like some kind of like a house, she was found at the house, but she having that harsh Saturn come over the Pisces North Node at the same time, and Ceres in retrograde there, opposite all of this happening in conjunct the North Node too. It can show relation to like her foundation of love and comfort, and so I don't know if she was, maybe it could be representing that just she was taken away from she was taken away from that in her life, her source of that in her life, or it could show that maybe she was taken care of for at least a while or some period of time while she was
taken. It could be,
or it could just be showing how much care people have for the case, even, and care for her. Because, like, this is kind of an interesting combination here. Like, you can show there's so much care as her life goes on, even though she's not actively with her family. And when you retrograde, when retrogrades are on different parts of the chart, a lot of times they can show how this is something that takes longer to come around in your life. So when I do like Ceres readings and things, sometimes there'll be retrogrades, and I'll say, it might be that you won't feel like you have a good nurturing foundation for love for yourself and from others around you until later than most people.
Okay.
Like maybe that comes for you a little bit later in life than it does for most people. So that's another, if this is the case for her chart, like, she was taken away from that, and maybe she won't get it back again until later.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you could interpret that.
Yeah, but there's a strong tie, and a lot of these things manifest in more than one way, which is why I will give more than one explanation.
Because we don't know. Like, with a lot of stories, we do know, and we do know what happened, and we will hear
a lot
details.
of times it's a combination of all of the possibilities. Right. So it's like...
Right. A lot of times they're all true. You're right. Like, so we don't actually know. You're literally just... What would be crazy is when, we have updates on the case, because I know this case is going to be solved. Like, I know it is. I'm affirming it. Like, this case will be solved.
I'm excited to see it solved.
And then it'll be, like, coming back and seeing, like, which of these were true, or, like, which was the one, or were they all kind of a little bit involved, or, I just know this case is going to be solved. And I feel like it's going to be solved really soon, and I'm so ready.
Me too.
I feel like once this documentary comes out, there's going to be an insane amount of new evidence.
It really is.
Yeah. Somebody is going to come forward.
I'm ready to see
I feel
this
like
documentary.
I am too, especially after like all the just knowing what's going to be in there and like what they're going to talk about, and that they really are going to go pretty deep with how the investigation has gone over the last 26 years, because that has not been public knowledge aside from the two big breaks, or what were thought were going to be big breaks in the case, and didn't end up yielding any substantially usable evidence. I feel like this is just about to explode. Like, this case is about to just come wide open, and I'm
just seeing more and more things. It's all pointing to the same. All these aspects are pointing to the same conclusion. I'm just seeing more and more of them the longer I look at this.
Yeah.
The creepy guy thing is interesting, with how the way the moon and the North Node line up with her Pluto and Scorpio and the midheaven at the moment, that she was known for like this because of this creepy guy, and it's opposite her midheaven, where she's known for home and wanting her childhood and wanting safety in the home. She became kind of like a, you know how Amber Alert became like, you know, when people use like the name of something as a common like term.
I have no. They did that. They did that.
It's something like that for her.
They did do that.
Okay, good.
Here we go. The Amber Alert. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So this is the Amber Alert service is named the Morgan Nick Amber Alert in the state of Arkansas.
Wow.
Did not know that.
Wow.
Yeah. Also, here's just a fun fact. I didn't realize how many shows like her case had been on over the years. So it was on Unsolved Mysteries. It's on. You can find it. That's on YouTube.
Wow.
It was on America's Most Wanted, and her family and the foundation were both featured on Extreme Makeover Home Edition after having major damage from a water heater explosion. So
that's random.
There has been random attention on the case.
Water heaters can explode?
Apparently. Well, I mean, they heat up. I don't know.
I'm going to have to look this up.
Another interesting thing that I did not mention earlier is that in 2012, there were 2 convicted felons that were arrested for computer fraud after attempting to assume the identity of Morgan Nick. So that's been a weird thing that happened in the case. Those are just a few random facts that forgot to mention sooner. So we can continue. I just think those are worth mentioning because that's really strange.
Well,
and gross also. Garbage.
You know, if you just look at her personality, like aside from how impressive these charts are,
yeah,
you know, she, especially as a child, still like she might have been a little bit on the shy side just because of this South Node, but she also has Lilith there, so she could have had like a mixture of like maybe being a little bit shy, but then also like
I feel like that Leo rising,
and then the
comes
Leo rising
out probably.
Uh-huh.
I feel it in her pictures when
and
I see her smile. Like she feels
there's that
bright.
pleasant, almost people pleasing moon in Libra.
Shout out to that fellow Libra moon. I have that
Libra
placement.
moon.
I love my Libra moon though, so it serves me well. I feel.
Mm-hmm. She does have Venus and conjunct Juno in the 12th house in Leo, which can be another indication of like how she is loved and people are so committed to loving her. Like she just embodies that energy within herself. And with the 12th house again, it has to do with like isolation and you know her issues with not having those people with her and being taken from those people. But let's see, Chiron and Cancer and the counting. I can't remember 11th house.
I'm good at Roman numerals, weirdly.
Yeah. Where people, you know, the collective knows her for this. Trauma, and her trauma is being taken from the community. And you know, I'm just trying to running over this real quick. I feel like she might have been kind of magnanimous in a way too, with her Pholus and Jupiter in Gemini in the 10th house. You know, again, a little social butterfly. There might have just been, maybe it wouldn't have hit her yet, but that South Node issue probably would have hit her maybe in her teens. I feel like that's when you start to feel like real self-reflective, like maybe I don't like myself.
When you're 6, you're like a first grader. Like,
she hadn't picked up that energy hadn't really come in strong yet.
You're still so innocent. I remember
you're not focused on that stuff yet.
Like, kids that age,
like you don't process that way yet.
It's like pre-bullying age. I feel like when kids still are very untainted by the world and still very like sweet and kind and just want to play, and they're still like kind of snuggly at that age. Like they're still just like, they're kind of babies. Like it's they've been through kindergarten and that's their life experience. You know what I mean? Like they're babies. So it's
Mars in Aries in retrograde, so active one, but also, you know, there's gonna be like waves of that being really strong and being less strong. So that was interesting. I could see like that type of sport being good for her though.
I was about to say it feels like a sports related placement for me because I was thinking like warrior energy, but at 6, you're gonna be like, and her being on the ball field and stuff felt like that warrior.
And when you play ball, it's like you're standing there a lot of the time, and you kind of take advantage of like that one moment when you make the hit, and then that moment when you get to run
for it. Yeah.
And like it's short bursts of stuff with baseball, which is very Aries, whereas opposed to like you're not like a long distance. Like swimmer or runner, like with Sagittarius.
I was gonna say Sagittarius. Nice. We're very aligned.
Or like a bodybuilder Leo. You know, like it's very.
I love this. I feel like that's a really fun fire sign.
See, my Mars is in Sagittarius, so I go like. My physical activities are a journey.
See, mine's Taurus.
It's
gonna.
But sensual.
That's true. Yeah. It's 8th house, so it's got...
Mine, I'm exciting. Let's go. Let's keep going.
No, mine's very, very planned out. It's very stable. It's very... It's
We're going to feel it out very grounded way, anyway.
With the 8th house intensity to it also. It's going to be really it's going to be intense as well. It's going to be slow and intense and methodical. And
well, hers is in her 8th house, too.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Intense.
That is really funny.
Yeah, and her, let's see, what else does she have that might be interesting to mention? She's got Saturn conjunct Uranus and Sagittarius. This is before that age of technology came in, when it hit Neptune and Capricorn. Like right before internet got huge.
This was before internet even existed. Yeah. This was back when my family we had a car phone. And it was like a big deal. Like we had a car phone that came in a gigantic bag, and we were like very, very we were considered
that's Saturn and Uranus, but it hadn't hit Neptune yet, so it wasn't the internet yet.
No, the internet. We got the internet when I was in I think the 6th grade, and we were like very on it. Like it was one of those things. We were like. I was one of the first of my friends to get a computer and get internet because it was like my family was real into it. They were really thinking computers were the way, and they were not wrong. So
they were right.
They were right.
Let's see. Some of my family had resistance at the time.
That's really funny. That's really funny.
Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much most of it. I feel like she was a really sweet kid.
Her little pictures, you can feel it. Like you can feel her little vibe and
like
her little
fun
aura.
To be around, and she would have done good things. Like I think that she had really good. Like she's someone I would want to know.
Yeah.
Like based on the chart.
Yeah.
And I'm not even all about Virgos.
I love Virgo energy, and
I like this personality that I'm feeling.
Virgo with the Libra energy is interesting. I have Virgo Libra in my big 3, and it's an interesting dynamic. I feel like it's almost like the Libra energy tries to get the Virgo energy to chill out, and it's like a battle. It feels like a power struggle between those two energies.
That's one of the stories with Libra. Did I tell you that before?
No.
So Virgo is the light, and Scorpio is the darkness, and there's a story about how Virgo and Scorpio were next to each other. They were just fighting all of the time, and then Libra came in as the balance.
No way. I definitely always feel like I do feel like Libra with my chart is having Pisces and Virgo as my sun and my rising, and then my Leo moon is just like, hey, it's like the mediator of those energies.
That's exactly what.
That's really fascinating. And hers is Virgo and Leo. Those feel very not the same. So I feel that's really interesting.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
She's got really interesting charts. I'm glad we were able to pull them and show them.
I'm glad that I got that birth time. If I hadn't watched those documentaries where her mom was just talking about memories and saying I remember the day she was born, and she said the time, and I was like, oh my God, I got the time. I voice messaged you immediately. I was like, I got the birth time.
It was so amazing we got a time.
That never happens with these cases, especially when you're looking at an individual that wasn't huge celebrity or victims. It's really hard to find information on. We couldn't even find the rising for, was it Tupac? I think we couldn't find the rising for. We couldn't find a birth time for, but we can.
Yeah, there were a lot of people that I was kind of surprised we couldn't. And then this one I was surely we won't, but we did.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
and the Disappearance time.
It was destined to happen. So. Is there anything else that you see that you want to talk about?
I think I'm not sure what else I could really...
Yeah, we're going to have updates. Like we said, this was kind of an emergency episode. This case just needs attention right now. It needs to be talked about. You guys are going to hear so much more about this case in the coming months, I feel. Not only from... obviously, the documentary is going to air. So keep an eye out for that. Make sure you're following the Morgan Nick Foundation on social media. Again, we're going to have links to donate and information. And if you do have any information on this case, it is actively being worked right now. Your information could be extremely valuable if you have anything to add, or if you know anything, or know somebody who knows something. If you've heard anything at all, please do your part.
And maybe if we do an update, we could pull her mom's chart.
That would be
because her mom is so involved
amazing.
with
I
all
would
of this.
love to know more about Colleen. I would love to see her placement.
And compared to her daughter, I really was interested with the Gypsy Rose episode to see the mother-daughter dynamic.
Season 1, episode 4.
So I like that keeps coming up in my mind. I'd like to see her mom's chart with this.
Right. Because she again has never given up. Kept this case alive all these years, and paid it forward by helping other families and using her experience. Although she is technically, a victim of this horrible crime of having her daughter abducted, she is not living in that space. She is doing amazing work out there. Her foundation is doing incredible work. Just want to give all the love and support to the Morgan Nick Foundation and to this case, because what we want is justice for Morgan, and we want to bring her home, whatever that looks like. She deserves to come home. So,
she does.
Thank you.
The family deserves answers.
Yes, they do. And everyone who has ever been touched by this case and invested in it, there's so many people out there who know about this case, even outside of a small little town. Lots of people know about it. She's touched the hearts of so many people. So stay tuned for all that is to come with this developing case. This is our first time to ever do an open case, and unsolved and actively being worked. But
yeah.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in, for listening. Follow us, like us, do all the things, subscribe. We've got a Patreon where we do a lot of extra content. So if you want more bonus material and more just random stuff, that's the place to find it. Again, thank you, and continue to love yourselves and chart all the bitches in your lives. And we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.